Love, 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 love. The message in our word is love. Love your neighbor as your brother. Love, love, love. One more time on love. Love, love, love. Love, love, love. Very nice. Thank you for singing, and you can have a seat.
Good morning. Welcome to Common Thread Church, and welcome to, I don't know what kind of special Sunday it is today. Sue, do you know what special Sunday it is today? Welcome to Ordinary Sunday. For me, it is not an ordinary Sunday because Jay, a member of our congregation, turned 15 yesterday. So I allowed him to have a party until 11:30, and I don't feel well because he's 15 and I'm 50. So again, welcome to Common Thread Church. And a special welcome to any and all newcomers, whether you are here for the first time or you've been coming for a few weeks or a few months. If you are here, you belong with us. And because we are a church that seeks to find support and companionship around the big questions in life instead of the answers, you are our life's blood. You keep us practiced in the art of welcoming the stranger, and you help us to create a spiritual life that is vibrant and dynamic. So if you would like to receive our welcome email, please use this link or the QR code, and it will give you everything you need to make your way into our community. We are also a community that believes the spiritual journey requires mutual support and companionship. So if you could use some of that these days, and it does seem like a lot of people need that these days. And thank you, as always, to our community for showing up for the various members of our church who are in need right now. You all have been showing up in an amazing way in all sorts of places in the community. We appreciate that. So if you could use some of that in a one-on-one kind of way, please reach out. Or just find the library down the hall after the service, where every week there is a listener posted waiting outside the library who has been walked through the self-awareness training and is there to provide a shoulder. This week, that person is me. So, again, welcome. We are so glad to be together. And let us affirm, as we do every week, the nature of our commitment to one another. If you are here, you belong.
If you are here, you belong.
We are, every one of us, carriers of the inner light.
We are, every one of us, carriers of the inner light.
We are, every one of us, carriers of divine breath.
We are, every one of us, carriers of divine breath.
I invite you to rise, greet one another, pass the peace. Last week the teens said, since I never get it right, that I should just...
All right, now that we've gotten properly introduced, we could stand one more time. We're going to sing together, I Am Here in the Heart of God. I am here in the heart of God.
I am here in the heart of God.
God is here in the heart of me.
God is here in the heart of me.
Like the wave in the water and the water in the wave.
Like the wave in the water and the water in the wave.
I am here in the heart of God.
I am here in the heart of God.
I am here in the breath of God.
I am here in the breath of God.
God is here in the breath of me.
God is here in the breath of me.
Like the wind in the springtime and the springtime in the wind.
Like the wind in the springtime and the springtime in the wind.
I am here in the breath of God.
I am here in the breath of God.
I am here in the soul of God.
I am here in the soul of God.
God is here in the soul of me.
God is here in the soul of me.
Like the flame in the fire and the fire in the flame.
Like the flame in the fire and the fire in the flame.
I am here in the soul of God.
I am here in the soul of God.
I am here in the mind of God.
I am here in the mind of God.
God is here in the mind of me.
God is here in the mind of me.
Like the earth in my body and my body in the earth.
Like the earth in my body and my body in the earth.
Like the flame in the fire and the fire in the flame.
Like the flame in the fire and the fire in the flame.
Like the wind in the springtime and the springtime in the wind.
Like the wind in the springtime and the springtime in the wind.
Like the wave in the water and the water in the wave.
Like the wave in the water and the water in the wave.
I am here in the heart of God.
I am here in the heart of God.
Thanks so much. Have a seat.
I'm going to just use what Melissa had, and at some point, hopefully, they'll pick it up. Hi, I'm Heather Schubert. This is my first time formally speaking in front of y'all, and when Sue said, do you know what you're going to say? I was like, yeah, I have bullet points, it's fine. And then the last 24 hours, I realized this is a really vulnerable topic for me. Holy cow, maybe I'm really not okay. So bear with me, because I'm going to cheat a little bit with a paper. But you may... Thank you. The three in me can't resist needing to be like excellent, extraordinaire. Okay, thank you. Okay. So hi. So you may have heard about this thing called Out Raleigh from Sue last week. You may have heard about this Pride Expo thing we had a booth at. You may have heard about this 1946 film. It's like, what's up with all the queerness all of a sudden? Well, so queer. But, you know, you also heard from Doug last week when he shared, hey, it's not just for the queer people, it's for straight folks too. And so I wanted to, before I jump into the core action of this, just kind of speak to why all of a sudden all these things. So last year, there was a survey that went out, and we heard from the community things that were most important to those in the community. The number one thing was the kids and the future of the church and the transition. But the other thing that was brought up was, what are we doing to support LGBT community folks? Those within Common Thread, those within Raleigh, those in our remote community, and so on. So this is pretty on brand with our one-year strategic plan that was put together by the lovely staff people surrounding Doug, Sue, Heather, Shelby, etc. So just wanted to call that out because I think we forget that we did that survey and that this is trying to be intentional. And if you're ever wondering why are we doing this, you are more than welcome to ask any of the aforementioned leaders and not me. So the other thing I wanted to call out is that, or mention, is that the film 1946 itself, if you haven't seen it yet, we're going to be screening it again in July. It is actually a flavor of atonement. That word is laden with jangliness for some. But essentially, hey, this was a mess. It was messed up, and it's been propagated across the world wrongly. It's been corrected by the people that made the mistake, and yet it's still being propagated across the world wrongly. So, if we are to redeem, as we claim on our website, with many things, if we're wanting to unpack what this means, if we're wanting to maybe even atone a little bit for what it means to be part of a community, especially in the South, that it's really not great. This is a really awesome opportunity to show not only the support and solidarity in that way across other faith communities, but also we have a heck of a lot of youth in this community that are part of queer spaces, that self-identify as that, or are having conversations related to that. And I know there are several parents in the room that feel a little unequipped because in generations like my own, it just wasn't part of the curriculum in the same way that it is becoming today, which I think is a great change. It's a needed change, but there's a lot of need for education and safe spaces for people our age as well. I literally could not be more of a testament to that. My kids are here with me today. Usually I come on the weekends, they're not with me because it's just pandemonium to get a 2 and a 5-year-old here on a Sunday morning, and it's better for everyone if we could just be more relaxed. But I myself am trying to figure out what it means to be a parent, a mom, a birthing mom, and a member of the queer community who is trying to figure out their identity. And it's been really beautiful to find myself, ironically, in a church being the most held around all of those things. And so my hope is that we can continue to educate ourselves and continue to be a safe place for people like me to hold them or partner with other communities that are seeking to do the same. And I say communities loosely because it's not just churches that are doing this. And so anyway, that's a bit about my soapbox as to why I'm up here talking about this and why you keep seeing and hearing all these queer things. So there is a QR code on the screen. We are ironing out with our teens and youth who are doing the majority of the heavy lifting in the booth at this event because it is a family-friendly event. However, there are many examples of ways we need people's help to pull this off and to come together around this Out Raleigh event. One example is we got to bring in a table and a couple chairs and a pop-up tent for our booth. So someone could just come and drop that off, and we would be thrilled to have that. Another example is we're going to have all these teens working the booth and greeting people. Holy cow, that's an awesome opportunity because they are in many ways the point of the spear around queerness, as I just talked about. But in other ways, that's a little scary because there are known to be protesters and different things at this event. So we would like to have teen chaperones to help provide that extra layer, as well as give them reprieve to be able to go enjoy the cool teen space that's at Out Raleigh. You'll hear more about this when Heather and or Shelby is up here talking about the youth stuff, but I just wanted to give a little precursor so y'all can know different opportunities to be involved in supporting. And then I wanted to also highlight the distance reality. Those that are remote from us, we haven't forgotten about you. There's actually a lot of logistical needs that are going to go into this event and things day of that may not be thought of front of mind. Things like paint for face painting, things like fairy hair, things like balloons for balloon animals. We have requested that we can do all of these things and more for kids at our booth, and so that's going to require supplies. So you may not have time and you're local, you may not have time to drive to Raleigh if you're remote, or fly to Raleigh if you're remote, but you're still welcome to feel like you're participating and supporting this venture with us. So all those details will be emailed out. If you please go to the QR code, we will be in communication with that and more. I think that was all I was supposed to cover, and I think Doug is next. So thank you all for your time.
You did well.
Oh.
Look at you, stalwart churchgoers here on Memorial Day weekend. I did something I haven't done in a long time on a Sunday. I sat out on the front deck with my wife before I came. And honestly, if I didn't have something to do today, I would still be sitting on the front deck. So I have high regard for you coming to church on this beautiful day. Okay. We are, go ahead and get comfortable. Find a comfortable place in your body. Go ahead and find a comfortable place there in your mind. We're going to do a meditation this morning that we've done before. We'll see. Oh, yeah, it's still working. Teens don't leave yet, right? Or do the teens already leave? Pardon? Oh, yeah. You got all kinds of time. Jeez. Am I going the wrong way? So has that stuff already happened? Smart ass. Okay, shut up, people. I dropped the clicker. Give me a break. All right, got that taken care of. So I have had several conversations this week. Last week, folks processing together both the lesson and the meditation that we've done over these 2 weeks focused on forgiveness, grace, and mercy, asking ourselves, when I consider forgiveness, when I consider mercy, when I consider grace, what is the state of my heart? What comes up? Who comes up? Where is my heart? Where has my heart been? Where is my heart today? And that's been true for me as well. My mom died a long time ago. I'm old now. But we were not a very healthy family, and there was stuff to forgive. And we've been saying all along through the lesson and the meditation, forgiveness is an internal thing a long time before it ever shows up as any kind of external action. Long before it ever shows up as a behavior, there is stuff that happens inside of us. So I've been looking internally, and I have been noticing places where I don't have that surge of energy that I once had. Now, I've been doing the practices. All the stuff we talked about during the lesson, I've been doing those things, but there are now things available to me, ways that I can think, ways that I can act, ways that I can react that maybe weren't as available some time ago. So I've been doing that. I know several of you have as well, and we're going to do the same meditation today that we've done for the last couple weeks, informed by an old Greek guy, Heraclitus. I was talking to one of our kids explaining this, what I'm telling you in a moment. I said, let's just call him Harry. So Heraclitus said, you can't step in the same river twice. By the time you come back the second time, the water's changed. By the time you come back the second time, you have changed. So, yes, we did this meditation last week, but the world is different today, and you are different today. So today, now let's breathe. Now that I've finished dropping everything and finding it again, let's reflect again on our own inner experience of grace. Let's reflect again on our own inner experience of forgiveness. So go ahead and take a breath. And as you exhale, let the tension go. Finding that space in your body that is relaxed. See if you can find that same space in your mind. Take a moment of just breathing in slowly, exhaling completely as we've been practicing. Do that for several breaths. Take a few moments. We've been saying these weeks, we cannot make ourselves forgive. But we can do things that if we will do them, will allow, even encourage, the day of forgiveness to emerge inside of us. That's what I'd like to focus on in this meditation, exploring what has emerged, exploring what is not yet emerged, what we are able to do, and what we are not yet able to do. Hopefully to renew our commitment to not feeding our resentments. Hopefully renewing our commitment to not feeding our anger, so that the day might come when forgiveness could emerge in us. Breathe again and relax. Another several breaths. And for the first of these 3 practices, see if there will come to mind a time when you have hurt someone. See if there will come to mind a time when you have caused harm. Take a moment. And for the practice today, let's try with intention to not do what we would typically do, and that is to turn away or distract ourselves. Take a moment and look squarely at pain you have caused. Knowingly, unknowingly, look squarely at a time when you caused hurt or harm. Breathing and relaxing as you look at that moment. And let's try, see if we are able to posture our hearts to ask in our minds the person we harmed for forgiveness. Holding that person, holding that moment in our hearts. See if you are able. I ask for your forgiveness. I ask for your forgiveness. And second, let's see if there will come to mind a time in which you hurt or harmed yourself. And if so, here also, let's not do what we would typically do, distract ourselves and look away. try and see the pain you caused yourself. Again, could have been knowing or unknowing. Take a moment and look squarely at that experience. And if you are able, see if you can pray this prayer with me. I ask for forgiveness. I ask for forgiveness. And again, if you are able, see if you can, pray this. I forgive you. I forgive you. And finally, more challenging, see if will come to mind a specific person who has hurt you. Allowing ourselves to not turn away as we often do, but look squarely at the hurt. Now again, maybe the harm was done knowingly or unknowingly. But now, take a moment and just look at it. See it. The whole lesson for these weeks has emphasized how difficult this is. And you may not be ready. I will offer 3 possible prayers and see if or which you are able. Let's first explore, are you able to pray this prayer? I forgive you. I forgive you. But if not, see if you can pray a prayer of understanding. Are you able to pray, I understand how you said what you said. I understand how you did what you did. See if you are able. But if you're not able, see if you're able to pray a prayer of process. May I be willing to be healed of my broken heart. May I be willing to not feed my grudge, to not feed my animosity. And breathing and relaxing the these few moments are for you. And indwelling divine, may there emerge in us the ability or the state of being able to let go of the charge of surging energy around harm, able to embrace peace within around harm, in those places that we have hurt and those places that we have been hurt. May it be so. Amen. Well, thank you for doing that with me. That's your cue, teens. And I do hope that reflecting on forgiveness will yield the fruit that it often does, that space of interior peace. I hope you do experience freedom from the stuck points. I pray that would be so for you. It has been for me. All right, a few places where we can connect in the community. Things going on in the church today. What are you thinking on Zoom? If you're online, we'll talk to you about that when we dismiss. Today afterwards, we're going to have snacks in the back. We're going to hang around and chat. We've got the room for an hour. Let's use it. Let's see, on the 2nd, Brew Crew at Crank Arm Brewing. You don't have to drink beer. You can drink soda pop if you like. Artsy Group is coming up. Centering Prayer Group coming up. Drop-in Self-Awareness and Drop-in Enneagram. All those things are coming up. Now, it is awfully early to be registering for the retreat in November, but we have to decide early because we have to book early and reserve space early. So if you want to go, early it is. So if you would like to go this fall, go ahead and get your name in, and I think you probably have to put some dollars in too. Do you know somebody remote? This QR code also on the front page of our app. It will send a note to me and to Pearlie and to Cindy. And if you've been around the church for a long time, you know Pearlie and Cindy. They have been longtime parts of our community, but they now live in Asheville, North Carolina, and Tallahassee, Florida. And so our remote team is very close to ready to start inviting folks into remote community, inviting folks to connect in online the way that we connect in our community in person. So we would love to invite folks that you know who would like to connect the QR code. If you order the front page of the app, you will find out it's very simple. I get messages all the time. Boy, I love what happens in your community. I've looked at it. I've been exploring your website, your messages, your lessons. Do you know a church like yours from Cincinnati? And we don't know many. I'm exploring. I'm working hard to build relationships with others, but I don't know yet. So here's what we can do. We can begin to develop community online. What the pandemic taught us is that maintaining spiritual friendships online is very, very doable. What's difficult is starting spiritual friendships online. That is much more difficult, and that's where we could help one another. So QR code, front page of the app, if you could help us, we would love to do that. As always, I rush through these things quickly. But if you want to find out the details or be reminded of what's going on, 3 places. You can go to the app, you can go to the front page of the website, or you can just open up the Thursday email. Always there is where you'll find everything you need to know. Somebody told me recently in our community, oh man, it did not happen until I was 45 years old. It did not happen until after I had learned the Enneagram. It did not happen until after I had learned about the self-awareness process. It wasn't till then that it really sunk in that not everybody lives in the world that I live in. Not everybody sees things or responds to things the way that I do. So helpful, this person told me. Coming to internalize the perspective changed my family, changed my work, has really changed my world. Those kinds of things happen all the time. I have worked really hard for lots and lots of years to make it true in our community and to make it accessible in our community, that the things that we do together do change our lives. The things that we do together do make us better human beings. So, I've worked really hard to make sure that we don't give time or money or bandwidth or announcement space or brain space to things that we should do because we inherited some kind of a tradition, but don't make us better human beings. And we have not arrived by any stretch of the imagination, but we have learned a lot about what human beings do to become better people. And we've learned a lot about how to transmit those things one to another. And right now, we are training our community's future leaders to build on what we have learned, to consolidate what we've learned, to improve on it, and to help assure that our community will still be a place where people become better human beings in 5 years and 10 years and 50 years. So that's what we invest in when we invest in the financial stability of our community. So I hope you will. QR code or top of our website, support the community. Angie, come on up.
Oh, there it goes. Good morning, everyone. I am just giving you an update about where things stand with our governance process as we work to create a governance structure for Common Thread moving forward. And Cherie did an amazing job as our elder leader at moving us through a process of having the elders ratify the new bylaws. So the board is going to meet June 30th and ratify the bylaws formally. And then our next piece of work we need to do is we need to nominate people to serve on the new board that is forming under the bylaws, okay? There are 5 people that will serve on the board. They're vested with a lot of authority and decision-making. We do not elect the board. The board chooses the board, okay? That doesn't sound very democratic, and that's right, okay, that's true. Because what we can't do is allow there to be that process of picking 5 people who are going to be vested with significant decision-making authority. We need to make sure that they are diverse in many ways because we know that diversity is strength. And so we can't leave it to a vote. We need to leave it to discernment of 5 people who know this community and who understand what the task is at hand to be on the board, to choose a curated set of 5 people with diverse perspectives, gender, sexuality, ethnicity, race, all of those things. They need to be a very special 5, okay? So what we need you to do before June 30th, if you are in the directory, okay? So the Congregational Assembly is everyone who's in the directory. If you're not in the directory, it's really easy to get in the directory, okay? We love for you to get in there. Those folks, we're depending on you to think about who you would nominate. Because on June 30th, we want to cast a very wide net and think about who in this community could step up and lead for 2 years or 3 years to be on the board. We need, this first board needs to have half of them have 2-year term, and 3 or 2 of them, and then 3 or 2 of them have a 3-year term so that we can have staggered terms, okay? And we sent a form to you in email, right, Doug? Oh. I had a hard week, and Doug made the form. We need to send the form out in email. Oh, it's going to come out this week. Yeah. Oh, it's coming. The form is created. Okay. There's a form coming, and if you are in the directory, and it's also now on the screen, and you can grab it with a QR code. Okay. Wait, say that again, Jen, so I can. It's on the app. as well. Okay. Okay, perfect. Now or when you see it later, if you could think of a person or multiple people who you would like to nominate, the board on June 30th will then look at all of those names and start their discernment process and start thinking about who they think could be a good combination of people, and then see if they can assemble those folks to serve. Okay? So we're making progress, and I'm excited, and we're going to take our first steps in this process, and just remember that it won't be perfect to start with, and it is amendable. So here we go. Thank you very much.
You liberate me from my own noise and my own chaos, from the chains of a lesser law. You set me free. You liberate me from my own noise and my own chaos, from the chains of a lesser law. You set me free. In the silence of the heart, you speak. In the silence of the heart, you speak. And it is there that I will know you, and you will know me. In the silence of the heart, you speak, the silence of the heart, the silence of the heart. Oh, you satisfy me till I am quiet and confident. Oh, in the work of the Spirit, I cannot see. You satisfy me, yeah, till I am quiet and confident. Oh, in the work of your Spirit, I cannot see. In the silence of the heart, you speak. In the silence of the heart, you speak. And it is there that I will know you, and you will know me. In the silence of the heart, you speak, the silence of the heart. Ooh, in the silence of the heart, the silence of the heart. there that I will know you. The silence of my heart, you speak.
Good morning, friends. Am I on? I'm on. So about 25 years ago, when my older son was getting ready to start kindergarten, his dad and I decided to enroll him in a newly established charter school for the arts in our county, and the principal's name was Miss Boyle. Now, Miss Boyle was a bit flamboyant and dramatic. It was an art school after all. And a few days before the first day of school, she hosted this kind of over-the-top orientation with balloons and singing, and well, it was kind of like a little production for these little people. My son was pretty skeptical of the whole thing. You could just tell. He's been a bit of a curmudgeon his whole life. So part of this orientation was the behavior contract signing ritual, where the children were given pieces of paper with words written on them that they couldn't read, and crayons to sign names they didn't yet know how to write. Now, girls and boys, she said, what we are doing here is making a promise to do our best, to be good to each other, to listen to our hearts, because love is what is in our hearts. At this comment, my son stops scribbling whatever attempts at letters he was putting on the signature line, looks up with a bit of a scowl on his face, and raises his hand. Miss Boyle, do you want to know what's really in our hearts? Miss Boyle gives us parents a look. She is in the Bible Belt after all, but also clearly not of it. I get the sense she's bracing for a Lord and Savior conversation. She whispers with a wry smile, "It's okay, I got this." She takes a deep breath and asks Matt, "Sure, sweetheart, bring it on. What's really in our hearts?" And Matt responds, "Blood." Some of you in this room have met my son, and it tracks, doesn't it? Even all these many years later. Well, he was right. Blood is in our hearts. But I think this little anecdote hints at the fact that the word heart can be a little confusing in our language and culture. It's sort of like the word love. We use the word love for everything, from our ineffable connection to the divine to our favorite flavor of ice cream. I love God. I love butter pecan. It gets thrown around in all kinds of contexts, and its meaning can either be diluted or just plain confusing. Similarly, we've been using the word heart a lot lately around here, talking about broken hearts, hardened hearts, and supple hearts, asking what's on our hearts and holding each other in our hearts, about how forgiveness is an act of the heart. There are Enneagram heart types who lead from their emotions. There is putting attention on our hearts when we meditate, and of course, there's the heart right here. This heart that is full of blood, that we can feel beating inside each of us moment after moment after moment. Now, when it comes to our bodies, we don't consider the brains in our skulls to be more important than the hearts in our chests. We understand, with our brains and our intellects, that our hearts are of equal importance with our brains in terms of our physical survival, at least. The brain will die quickly without the heart, and a heart without a brain is just a pump. But when we speak of what seems a little more metaphorical or fuzzy, the heart where we feel things, that kind of understanding of the heart, in our culture, it's been relegated to second-place status. Don't trust your feelings, we're often told. Be rational. The rational brain reigns supreme. Our culture prioritizes rationality. It relies on analysis and linear thinking, order and logic. It seeks to be right. It recoils at being wrong. It would be near impossible to exist in this world without our rational brains. They are essential to understanding, to planning, and to doing the work necessary for spiritual transformation. But why does the brain even want to bother with all of this understanding, with the work of spiritual transformation? I was driving around listening to a podcast the other day, and one of the guests said something that resonated with me. We need the mind to understand, he said, but it is the heart that makes the mind want to understand. We need the mind to understand, but it is the heart that makes the mind want to understand. The brain is where we conceptualize what spiritual transformation is and how to do it, and sometimes that's an essential first step. Moving from concepts to the reality of how we do this requires all of our being, but what must always come before the how of anything is the why. And the heart is where we find the why. If we aren't leading with the why from our hearts, then what our brains understand, and it doesn't really matter. And what our bodies do doesn't really matter, at least not with regard to spiritual transformation. So it's worth learning how to listen to our hearts, how to love with them, how to live from them, how to lead with them. Now, millennia ago, people really respected the heart and its wisdom. They got this. Even ancient civilizations like the Greeks and the Mesopotamians, they thought the heart had its own intelligence. And science is starting to back that up. It was a while back I stumbled upon a book that maybe isn't on too many of our radars because it came out 25 years ago, back when my son was holding forth on what's really in our hearts. And it's called The Heart's Code by neuropsychologist Paul Purcell. And in it, he writes about how the heart has its own intelligence, capable of making decisions and talking to the rest of our body. And he asserts that changes in our heart's activity affect our brain cells, and that they can even track this through our pulse. You know that EKG thing that they do at the doctor's office? That's actually picking up electrical signals from our heart. Signals that reach all over our body and even into the atmosphere around our bodies. So a couple of years ago, because I like to test things out for myself, I got a cool little gadget. I meant to bring it today, I forgot. But it's part of an app called Inner Balance from the HeartMath Institute, an organization whose stated mission is to help people bring their physical, mental, and emotional systems into balanced alignment with their heart's intuitive guidance. And they claim a space that is sort of a bridge between science and spirituality. We'll talk about the spirituality part of their work a little bit next week. But for now, this little tool, when you clip it on your earlobe and connect it to the app, it measures what's called heart rate variability and whether our hearts and brains are in alignment, because when they are, we are much better able to handle stressful situations. We're much better able to reduce anxiety and overwhelm, improve health and performance, and even clear our thinking. But what it also demonstrates is that the heart talks to the brain a lot more than we thought. That what the heart says to the brain affects how we think and feel. It's a term they call heart coherence. Now, not all scientists are on board with all of this research. There are naysayers and skeptics, and like I said a few weeks ago, it's important not to take any of these things as absolute truth, not the research, not the skeptics, but to take it all in for ourselves, to see what resonates, to see if we can ground truth in our beings, anything that, yes, feels true. Now, I have to say, this tool doesn't do any work for me. It just helps me measure things in a quantitative way. And I do see a correlation between how I'm feeling in my heart and the heart rate variability data that this app tracks for me when I use it. Whether I'm in a stressful situation, intentionally meditating, or somewhere in between. I can see what the researchers claim, that when our heart rhythms are all over the place, especially during stress, it messes with our brain's ability to work well. We get fuzzy thinking, forgetfulness, we struggle to make good decisions, and it makes our emotions even more intense. But when our heart rhythms are steady and calm, especially when we can cultivate a sense of peace and equanimity deep within through something like meditation, we are in a state of coherence that helps us think clearly, helps us remember things, and make smart choices. It's also from such a state of coherence that we can go deeper and beyond these practical benefits, from a practical benefit like thinking clearly to an eternal one, perhaps, like tapping into divine presence and wisdom. Now, of course, science never discovers anything new. All it can do is uncover and confirm the reality of what is, and the wisdom that's been around for as long as we have. And the takeaway for me from all this research is the heart does way more than just pump blood. It's kind of an electric powerhouse, working on different levels to keep itself in check and share information with the entirety of our bodies. And before science, This wisdom had to be intuited through an organ of perception that isn't the rational brain, this organ being the heart, the physical beating, blood-pumping heart in our chests. And just like our thinking happens in the organ we call our brain, housed in our skull, ancient wisdom suggests that something deep, an inner sense or intuition, emerges from the organ we call the heart in our chest. And this is good news because now when we speak of the heart, we can take it out of the fuzzy metaphorical space where it's often found in our culture. It's not metaphorical at all. It's right here. And it's really important when it comes to our spiritual growth. Spiritual growth requires the integration of our minds and our hearts, but also it requires a kind of leading with the heart, because it's the heart that provides. Doug has been talking about this. What's inside us, like our thought, me because I'm not you. And then judges them based on whether they're good or bad, protecting us in the most clear and subtle ways. So the skills of the rational brain are very important when it comes to navigating our way through this world, but in and of itself, the brain cannot see the whole picture. It cannot handle paradox. It cannot see our oneness in the universe because that is not its function. In fact, remember what I mentioned earlier about how the electrical impulses emitted from the heart and recorded in an EKG actually go beyond the body, beyond the self? Well, an EEG, test that measures the electrical impulses from the brain, demonstrates that brain waves stay pretty insular, going no further than the skull, which we could call a metaphor for its limited capacity to see the whole if it weren't actually measured by science. Again, the brain is a source of critical intelligence in our lives, but if the only source of intelligence we choose to consult is the rational brain, then we end up with a superficial understanding of reality, which prevents us from connecting with our inner wisdom and connecting with the divine. The heart speaks to the brain with unfathomably deep wisdom, coherence, and wholeness. And the brain needs to learn how to listen. The heart needs the brain to learn how to listen. A properly ordered integration of heart and mind is how we come to see deep truth. It's how we awaken in the spiritual life. Waking up is really the whole of Jesus' message, if you wanted to sum it up. And it's the core teaching of all religious traditions. We see an understanding of the heart in a way that precedes the rationality of the brain. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a person's heart in its hidden depths. Listen to the wind it talks. Listen to the silence. Many others like them don't say that the heart is more important, heart being what drives anything the mind does or conceives of, anything that's worth doing or conceiving. We need the mind to understand, but it is the heart that makes the mind want to understand. And it's that word want that gets my attention in this quote. Wanting, yearning, longing. This longing is much more than our mere emotions. In fact, I don't experience it as being really about emotions at all. It's much deeper than that. This moves me as I continue to imagine and conceptualize God and all creation becoming manifest in the first place because of a primordial longing, because of a divine yearning to know and to be known, to love and to be loved. This longing that is in our minds is the same longing that is in our hearts, and it is the same longing that is in God. How can I tell, was a question that came up last Sunday during What Are You Thinking? Whether I'm actually forgiving someone or just being nice. And Doug referenced Jonathan Haidt, the author of The Righteous Mind, which provided some context for his lesson last week when he said that there are two brains we're dealing with when things get emotionally charged. The elephant, or emotional brain, that operates at an unconscious level of reactivity, and our right or irrational brains that are analytical, but more often than not in such charged situations, take action based on the emotional reactivity of the elephant brain. Just as our hearts and our minds require proper ordering and integration, so too, Doug told us, do these brains, if we are to get to grace and forgiveness. The rider needs to figure out how to be more grounded and get ahead of the elephant, because you see how big that elephant is. And once our brains learn this, then we can have a clearer picture of where we're going. And then during What Are You Thinking, Robin spoke up with some additional insight, reminding us that when we consider a way in which we've been slighted and wonder if we have truly forgiven, we can check our hearts to see if they're filled with equanimity or still bearing bitterness. She was echoing the Native American wisdom I just referenced. Listen to your heart. It knows. Okay. But how do we listen in order to know? And how do we know that we know what the heart knows? Again, last week, Doug mentioned some of the tools we have here at Common Thread to help us navigate our way toward forgiveness and toward a listening heart. The Enneagram can help us understand our motivations and the motivations of others. And that kind of understanding can stir up empathy and compassion and lead us to forgiveness. Our self-process is an excellent tool for understanding ourselves and those we love in the context of relationship, helping us to be able to extend authentic forgiveness. And I had the chance to experience this profoundly a little over a year ago. Now, some of you might recall last spring when Maria and I agreed to demonstrate the conflict resolution process in the fellowship hall. I think we probably want to get over there. And the fellowship hall for 3 weeks in a row. Throughout the entire process, she and I were working to understand where the other was coming from in the midst of a conflict we'd had, where she didn't feel included in a hasty decision I'd made, and where I didn't feel supported in what I felt was an emotionally difficult time on the heels of that decision. The narratives that ran through our brains were protective, right? Not connecting. With Doug's facilitation, patterns in our relationship that frequently in challenging times. A time when we weren't dealing with the emotional, make different choices about how to be with each other moving forward. In fact, during the session, in my mind, I was already rationally crafting a strategy for ensuring Maria and I would make decisions together, that she would feel included. I made mental notes: take a pause, Kemple, don't steamroller, clearly communicate, bring her on board, etc.
You are so good.
That's so good. I confess, I felt a little unsure that I'd be able to get it right all the time, if I would be able to see my behaviors clearly, if I would be able to execute on this commitment I'd just made in my mind, because old unconscious habits die really hard. And so the most powerful thing that happened during those sessions wasn't a brain thing at all. It was a new way of seeing the situation and seeing my beloved with my heart. When I asked Maria what being included looks like for her, that question seemed to touch her heart more than her brain. And any defenses she had fell to the wayside with her response of, "I just want you to come get me." In that moment, I felt all my defenses slip away, and I felt a surge of love flood my heart. I felt it here, a kind of pervasive warmth in this heart filled with divine light. And you know, the conflict we chose to demo was an old one, and I might have thought that I had already forgiven her years, as we learned a few weeks ago it was for our friend Scott. We might have hearts open enough to forgive and even possibly love the people who have caused us the most harm. And we will know it in our hearts. So next week we'll talk more about the integration of mind and heart, about what it means to put the mind in the heart, how to do it, and back to that ultimate question earlier of why our hearts might want us to do it, for the good of our souls, for the good of our families, for the good of our communities, for the good of our world, and quite possibly beyond. But between now and then, I'd like to encourage you to join me in some contemplative practices online this week, some heart-centered meditations, plus a practice called Lectio Divina, or divine reading. So starting on Tuesday and throughout the week, I'll be posting some audio recordings in the app to introduce these practices to anyone unfamiliar, and then I'll lead us in doing them. The heart-centered meditations leading into meditations on sacred texts, which we will engage without analysis and see if we can hear what the heart and the still small voice within the heart might be saying to us. This way, when we pick up the topic again next week, we'll all have had the opportunity, at least, to experience together some practices that might help us ground truth in our beings, what we're talking about, just a little bit more. And so, indwelling divine, may we cultivate the quietness of mind required to access the wisdom of our hearts, where we find our deepest selves, the truest truths, and your still small voice. Amen. Well, friends online, thank you for joining us this morning, assuming you're joining us this morning. And if you are joining us this morning, we want to invite you to What Are You Thinking Online, which is something that our remote folks do each week. We're going to do What Are You Thinking, Sensing, and Feeling here in the room, and we invite you to do it online as well. If you look in the YouTube comments, you will see a link to join a Zoom chat I'm not sure who's leading it today. One of my friends is leading it. Some of the warmest, friendliest, most lovely people you'll ever know. So if you're new, I just encourage you to maybe push past a little resistance, join online, connect with some of these folks. You won't regret it. And you'll need a code to get in. So the code to get into that chat is 1417. If you're watching this at some other time and you want to, we just talked about it earlier today. Doug had mentioned how we're looking for more folks to find us online and join our remote community. If you're interested in getting some more information, so whether or not you're watching this morning or watching some other time during the week on the recording, there's another link there, newcomer inquiry. Just go ahead and fill that out. And if you do, we will send you an email to let you know a little bit more about our community and get you connected if you like. And so with that, everyone here in the room, if we can put one hand on our hearts and dismiss our friends on the live stream, remembering that deep in our hearts, deep within us, the divine indwells us, which means that the fruit of the Spirit is in us. Patience, kindness, love, all of those fruits are there. We must nurture them. The world needs them. And so let's extend our other hand to our city and to our world. As a reminder, this week, everyone we encounter, those with whom we live, with whom we work, with whom we go to school, and everyone beyond who we encounter. Let us share the fruit that is within us, within them, as we take seriously our commitment to be healers and repairers of our world. Amen. Amen. Folks on the live stream, God bless you. You are dismissed. Folks here in the room, I would just like to encourage us to maybe take a few deep breaths and just get in touch with what you might be feeling and sensing before we talk about what we're thinking.